The Roman Empire didn't fall in a day. It crumbled over decades while its citizens kept going to the forums, kept attending the games, kept believing tomorrow would look like yesterday. They couldn't see it because they were living inside it. You are living through the same collapse right now. The institutions you were told would last forever are failing. The systems designed to protect you are breaking apart. The social contracts that held society together are being torn up in front of your eyes. Collapse is not coming. It's already here. And the terrifying part is not that it's happening. The terrifying part is how few people can see it. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you the signs that historians will point to when they write about our era. The patterns are unmistakable if you know where to look. The question is not whether you believe it. The question is whether you're ready to face what's already happening. The pattern repeats. Every great civilization in history believed it was different. The Egyptians, who built monuments meant to last for eternity. The Romans, who called their city eternal. The British, who said the sun would never set on their empire. They all shared one fatal delusion. They believed the rules of history didn't apply to them. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. But here's what Santayana didn't tell you. Even those who remember the past are condemned to repeat it because knowing something intellectually and acting on it emotionally are two completely different things. The historian Arnold Toynbee studied 23 civilizations. He found they all followed the same pattern. Rise, peak, decline, collapse. Not a single exception. The average lifespan of a major civilization is roughly 300 years. The American experiment began in 1776. Do the math. We are not special. We are not exempt. History doesn't repeat, it rhymes. And right now, it's rhyming louder than ever before. But to understand where we are, we need to recognize what collapse actually looks like from the inside. Institutional decay. When Rome began its decline, the institutions remained standing. The Senate still met. The courts still convened. The laws still existed on paper, but something fundamental had changed. The institutions had become hollow. They served the powerful instead of the people. Trust evaporated. In 1964, 77% of Americans trusted the government to do the right thing. Today, that number is below 20%. Think about what that means. 8 out of 10 people have lost faith in the systems designed to protect them. But it's not just government. Trust in media has collapsed to historic lows. Trust in religious institutions has cratered. Trust in corporations, in science, in each other has plummeted. A society cannot function when no one believes in its institutions. This isn't pessimism. This is data. When institutions lose legitimacy, they don't disappear overnight. They become zombies, still walking, still making motions, but no longer serving their original purpose. If this pattern is changing how you see the world around you, hit like and subscribe for more hidden patterns they don't want you to see, because what comes next explains why this is accelerating faster than ever before. The wealth divide. In the final days of Rome, something happened that historians call the crisis of the 3rd century. Wealth concentrated at the top while the middle class was hollowed out. Sound familiar? In 1970, CEOs earned roughly 20 times what their average worker made. Today, they earn over 300 times as much. The 3 wealthiest Americans now own more than the bottom 50% of the population combined. That's 3 people with more wealth than 160 million. But here's the part they don't tell you. This isn't just about money. Every civilization that collapsed showed this exact pattern before the fall. The French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, the fall of Rome. When the gap between the haves and have-nots becomes too large, the social fabric tears. This isn't about envy or politics. It's about physics. Societies are systems. When too much energy flows to one part and starves the rest, the system becomes unstable. The middle class is the stabilizing force of any civilization. And right now, it's being systematically dismantled. But the wealth divide is only one piece of a much larger fracture. Social fragmentation. Before Rome fell, something strange happened to its citizens. They stopped seeing themselves as Romans. Regional identities grew stronger. Tribal loyalties replaced civic bonds. The common identity that had held the empire together simply dissolved. We are watching the same thing. Americans no longer agree on basic facts. They don't share common sources of information. They increasingly live in separate realities. A study from Pew Research found that Democrats and Republicans now view each other not just as political opponents, but as existential threats to the nation itself. When citizens see each other as enemies, the nation has already fallen. But it goes deeper than politics. We've lost the third places. The churches, the community centers, the local gathering spots where people from different backgrounds used to interact. Robert Putnam documented this in Bowling alone. Social capital has been declining for decades. We are together but more alone than ever before. Loneliness has reached epidemic proportions. And lonely, disconnected people don't build civilizations. They watch them burn. Speaking of burning, there's another system failing that affects everything else. Environmental stress. The Mayans didn't just disappear. Archaeologists now know that a series of devastating droughts collapsed their agricultural system. The Mesopotamians didn't just fade away. Centuries of intensive farming turned their fertile crescent into a desert. Environmental collapse has ended more civilizations than invading armies. A nation that destroys its soils destroys itself. Roosevelt said that in 1937, after the Dust Bowl showed Americans what happens when you ignore environmental limits. We forgot that lesson. 2023 was the hottest year in recorded human history. 2024 broke that record. We are watching ice sheets that took millions of years to form disappear in decades. But here's what most people miss. Environmental stress doesn't kill civilizations directly. It creates cascading failures. Crop yields fall, food prices rise, migration increases, tensions escalate, resources become scarce, conflict erupts. We are already in the cascade. The climate refugees aren't coming. They're already moving. The water wars aren't theoretical. They've already begun. And this brings us to perhaps the most overlooked sign of collapse. Complexity collapse. The historian Joseph Tainter spent his career studying why complex societies collapse. His conclusion was disturbing. Societies become so complex that they can no longer solve their own problems. Every problem creates new bureaucracies, new regulations, new systems layered on top of old systems. Eventually, the cost of maintaining all this complexity exceeds the benefits. Complexity becomes its own enemy. Look around you. How many passwords do you need to manage your life? How many forms to see a doctor? How many regulations to start a small business? The average American now spends over 8 hours per year just dealing with health insurance paperwork. We have created systems too complicated for humans to operate. And here's the terrifying part. When complex systems fail, they don't fail gradually. They fail catastrophically. Think about what happened in 2008. A few bad mortgages in Florida somehow crashed the global economy. Our systems are interconnected in ways no one fully understands. One failure cascades into another, and another, until suddenly the whole thing comes down. We've built a civilization on a foundation of systems that no single person comprehends. But there's an even deeper problem we haven't addressed yet: the meaning crisis. Rome didn't just lose its economy or its military. It lost something harder to measure but even more essential. It lost its sense of purpose. The old gods no longer inspired. The old values no longer held. Citizens became cynical, disconnected, adrift. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. But what happens when an entire civilization loses its why? We are living through what philosophers call the meaning crisis. Rates of depression have increased over 1,000% since 1945. Suicide rates are climbing. Addiction is epidemic. Deaths of despair now kill more Americans than car accidents. Despair. This isn't about weakness. It's about a civilization that has lost its story. We used to believe in progress, in the future, in something larger than ourselves. What do we believe in now? When people lose meaning, they don't fight for their civilization. They don't sacrifice for the future. They check out. They numb themselves. They wait for the end. And that's exactly what we're seeing, from the rise of nihilism to the obsession with apocalyptic entertainment. But perhaps no sign of collapse is more obvious than what's happening to our ability to think. Attention collapse. In 2004, the average attention span was 12 seconds. Today, it's 8 seconds. That's less than a goldfish. We are losing our minds, literally. But this isn't about willpower or discipline. We are being subjected to the most sophisticated attention extraction technology ever created. Billions of dollars and the brightest minds in the world are dedicated to one goal: keeping you scrolling, keeping you clicking, keeping you distracted. As former Google design ethicist Tristan Harris explains, it's not you versus your willpower. It's you versus 1,000 engineers on the other side of the screen. And those engineers are winning. The average person now checks their phone over 150 times per day. We've lost the ability to sit with our own thoughts, to read deeply, to think critically. A population that cannot think cannot govern itself. The Founding Fathers built a system that required an informed, engaged citizenry. What happens when that citizenry can no longer focus long enough to understand complex issues? Democracy becomes a reality show. Policy becomes a meme. Truth becomes whatever captures attention. We are witnessing the cognitive collapse of an entire civilization, and this connects directly to our next crisis: truth decay. Every collapsing civilization loses its ability to distinguish truth from fiction. In the final decades of the Soviet Union, people had a saying: "We pretend to work, and they pretend to pay us." Everyone knew the official truth was a lie. No one could agree on what the actual truth was. Sound familiar? We have entered an era where you can find a PhD to support any position, where AI can generate fake videos indistinguishable from reality, where algorithms show you only what confirms your existing beliefs. We no longer have shared facts, only competing narratives. The Rand Corporation calls this truth decay. It's characterized by increasing disagreement about facts, a blurring between opinion and fact, declining trust in institutions as sources of facts, and increasing dominance of opinion over fact. Chaos. When a society can no longer agree on what's real, it cannot solve problems. It cannot have productive debates. It cannot make collective decisions. It just fractures into warring tribes, each convinced the others are either stupid or evil. This is where we are now. But knowing all this, the question remains: what do we do about it? The path forward. I've painted a dark picture, but I haven't told you this to make you despair. I've told you this so you can see clearly, because here's what history also teaches us. Civilizations collapse, but people survive. New societies emerge, sometimes better ones. The fall of Rome gave birth to the Renaissance. The chaos of the medieval period eventually led to the Enlightenment. The only way out is through. You cannot fix what you refuse to see. The first step is acknowledging reality, not to surrender to it but to navigate it. 1. Build local community and real connections. 2. Reduce dependence on fragile systems. 3. Cultivate skills that don't require institutions. 4. Find meaning beyond consumption. 5. Stay informed without becoming consumed. The people who survive collapses are not the strongest or the smartest. They are the most adaptable, the most connected to real communities, the most grounded in purpose that doesn't depend on external validation. This is not the end, it is a transformation. What we're witnessing is not just destruction. It's the painful birth of something new. The question is not whether the old systems will fall. The question is, what will you build in their place? And that, ultimately, is up to you. We are living through the pages of a history book that hasn't been written yet. The signs are everywhere: institutional decay, wealth concentration, social fragmentation, environmental stress, complexity overload, a meaning crisis, attention collapse, truth decay. This is the pattern of collapse, but knowing this gives you something most people don't have: clarity. While others remain blind to what's happening, you can see. While others react in panic, you can prepare. While others despair, you can adapt. Civilizations are not buildings. They're not governments. They're not economies. Civilizations are agreements between people about how to live together. When those agreements break down, new ones must be formed. In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. The collapse is not something to fear. It's something to understand, to navigate, and ultimately to transcend. If you made it this far, comment eyes open to show you're among the few who can see what's really happening. The truth is never comfortable, but it's always worth knowing. History has more to teach us. Subscribe if you want to learn.